Hey everyone, it's Mr. E, and I'm here with Dalton. And today we're going to be talking about Lucifer Season 5 that recently released on Netflix. First off, I want to say thank you to a man named Adam that works with my father. He gave me a very cool Hammer of Thor necklace that he blessed for me. Uh, Gods and goddesses of Aesir and Veneer, I thank you for the blessings you have given me. I ask you to continue to bless me and help me to face the decrees of the Norns with courage and honor. I ask you to help me do what is best for my faith, my folk, and for my family, this day and every day. Hail the High Ones. Hail Odin. Now, let's get into Lucifer Season 5. They only released half the
Complete
season
switch of
on Netflix.
mythologies here. Go
Yeah,
from
we're gonna switch things up a little bit from Norse to Christianity.
and I find it even funnier that of the two of us, you would think that I would be the one that would be offering prayers to pre-Christian deities, but life is funny sometimes. Anyway, on to the devil we know, as it were.
Yeah, they only released half the season. Now, I don't know if that was intentional or if it was due to COVID.
It,
Did you hear
it,
about
it
that?
it's because scheduling, because COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. So they released the first half of the season, and in my opinion, it was awesome. What did you think of it overall, Dalton?
Like I said, it took me a long time to get into Lucifer because of the procedural cop element, and like it's not that I don't like procedural cop shows, because some of my favorite shows are detective shows like Monk and Castle and a lot of shows like that. But when I go to a show about the supernatural, I kind of would rather it just focus on the supernatural, and
Yeah,
mixing the two. Even though I like both, both have the concept work for me, but together they just don't mesh. So I'm glad that they've sort of eased up a little bit on the procedural cop element, and gone more into the old school mythology, which is kind of my bag.
yeah. I did enjoy the cop parts, but I also feel like in a show about Lucifer, especially considering that it's based on the DC Vertigo comic, that
Hmm.
there should have been more supernatural elements. I mean, especially in the first season, it was very sparse. Really, it only showed up when a Menadil would come to stop time.
Yeah.
But I feel like last season they really ramped it up with a half angel being born and devils possessing bodies to come from hell. Not devils, demons. And
Yeah.
in season 2, when they introduced Lucifer's mother, I don't know if that was in the comic or if that was something they added in the show.
Um, I don't remember her in the comic, but it's been a day or two since I've checked the Lucifer comic. I was mostly disappointed by the fact that when it got time to reveal the backstory of why Lucifer's wings were torn off, um, that they didn't take the opportunity to bring in Dream of the Endless, because if you know anything about the comic, you know that it's a spin-off of Neil Gaiman's Sandman, and that in the comic, when Lucifer got depressed because he was worried that being the Warden of Hell was all part of Daddy's plan, as it were. When that happened, Dream showed up, and Lucifer essentially convinced Dream to help him by ripping off his wings with a dagger. And he gave the key to hell to Dream to look after, which became the plot, or most of the plot of, I believe it was Season of Myth, which was volume 4 of Sandman. But yeah, my meaningless fanboy, I want to see Dream of the Endless gripes aside. Um, yeah, I was just waiting for them to get into some of the heavier mythology sort of stuff, and the sort of Old Testament lore stuff, because that's where my sort of specialization of interest is. And Neil Gaiman is notorious for being good at that. So the fact that it's a Sandman spinoff helped things, I think, in the original comic run. I can't
Yeah,
speak for the new Lucifer run in the quote unquote Sandman universe imprint. I feel like, as with most of the Sandman universe new Sandman universe stories, it's very much a poor imitation of the awesomeness that was the 90s run. But, that's not here nor there.
Well, considering the ending to the mid-season finale, chances are they are going to start bringing in more of the bigger cosmic stuff. So Dream could show up potentially, but we don't know. They already confirmed season 6 is going to happen, so maybe that could be the plot point for that.
I would like if it were to happen, especially because Netflix is the one with the rights to the Sandman live action series, and especially given the fact that we've already seen Lucifer and Constantine in the CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, and given that both Lucifer and Constantine play an integral role in the first arc of Sandman, Preludes and Nocturnes, it would be amazing if Netflix just blew everyone's mind and got Matt Ryan and the guy that plays Lucifer, whose name I can't remember at present.
Tom Ellis?
Yeah. If they got Matt Ryan and Tom Ellis to come back to do live action Preludes and Nocturnes, I would die, and it would be awesome.
I mean, in the crossover, they confirmed that Lucifer is part of that multiverse, and you see at the end that all the Earths have now combined into one. So, do you think he's existing on that version of LA?
I would imagine so. It's the only thing that makes internally consistent sense. And my thinking is maybe in the Netflix iteration of Sandman, the thing that weakens Dream enough that he can be bound is the merging of the universes, because that was a key plot thread of the original Sandman run, was that the reason why they were a group of the group of English occultists were even able to bind Dream at all was because Dream had just exhausted himself fighting in a cosmic war of some description, which then later became a cop-out when they did Sandman Overture, but that's a different story. But in this version of event, I would very much enjoy it if the thing that wiped Dream out was the merging of the multiverses. That would be a nice way of making everything fit neatly together, and it would just make everything perfect. Plus, it would give Tom Ellis more time to play Lucifer, and it would give Matt Ryan more excuses to play Constantine, which are always advisable whenever they could be managed.
Yeah, the one scene that they were on together was maybe the best scene in the whole damn thing.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there like, oh my god, they did it, and I love
the interplay between them felt really natural, as if you were actually looking at Constantine and Lucifer, interacting.
Yeah, neither of them skipped a beat, and it was totally. And part of me even wonders if John didn't change the pronunciation of his name just to spite Lucifer, because of course, in the comics it was always a running joke that his name was pronounced Constantine, and then of course in most iterations on movies and TV it's Constantine. So my personal headcanon is Constantine met Lucifer being the devil. He started calling him Constantine, and then John, being the spiteful bastard that he is, was like, fuck it, I'm going by Constantine now. That would be amazing. If that was the impetus behind John's name pronunciation change, and it would be a nice Easter egg for the comic.
Yeah, so let's get into the meat of the season. It begins out with Lucifer still in hell, and a guy shows up, and he's stuck in his own hell loop, not realizing that he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Then he's recently been murdered, and he's investigating the murder from the point of view of the man's memories in hell, while Chloe and Maze are investigating it on Earth. And one thing that I have to question is, though, they constantly say that, time flows differently when in hell. So, like, were the investigations actually taking place at the same time, or was that just an editing trick?
I think the implication was that because of the trapping nature of hell, it took Lucifer, I think he said 200 times of this happening before he took an interest in um before he took an interest in the guy, which I guess must have mirrored um I'm not really sure how the timelines work. Is it just time is drawn out in hell so that eternity takes longer, or is it just was it a flashback to whatever they were doing when the actual case came up, or what the situation is there? I'm going to pull a Doctor Who and just call it wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff and move on for the sake of moving the plot along.
Yeah. One thing I did like is they showed a little bit of the mechanics of hell, how the people you see in your the hell loops are demons. They just take the form of whoever is.
Whatever you happen to project on them. And I also liked the nice touch of you are bound by whatever guilt or whatever feeling you feel, which was actually how it worked, or how it was said to work in Sandman when hell was first introduced in that way. So good for them for A, keeping to the loyalty of the comic, and B, I think it's just an interesting idea of the damned are only damned insofar as they allow themselves to be, and they think they deserve pain.
Also, I think it's nice that it's limited to the knowledge that they had when they were alive, because the guy never saw the person who shot him. When he lifts up the mask, there's no face.
Yeah. Because what he remembers is the mask, therefore that's as good as the man's face relative to the memory.
Yeah. And when they were at that apartment building at night, Lucifer just he undoes the illusion, and you see like hell for like the craggly mountaintops and lightning storm, and it's just like this barren, uninhabitable wasteland outside of the building that they are on.
Yeah, it was definitely better than the hell from Legends of Tomorrow. I remember beating my head against a metaphorical wall, being, I get that you're on a budget, but you couldn't have at least tried for something like infernal
when
at
it was
all.
basically just Gotham City with demons.
Yeah, no, it was like I actually was gonna title my review for that episode back when I was reviewing Legends of Tomorrow. I was going to review that episode and call it "Hell is an Inner City," apparently.
Yeah.
Because that just, it works. And it work, honestly, if I ever get back to reviewing episodes of Legends of Tomorrow, I probably will still do that, because it's even more appropriate now, what with the world being on fire and shit in
Yeah.
inner cities.
Yeah, believe me. So Chloe, has accepted the fact that Lucifer is the devil. In the time that he's been gone, she's come to terms with that. And
It helps that one of the people in the main cast is a professional psychiatrist.
yeah, and she got to see him, his last act be heroic, saving his nephew and then going back to hell to keep all the demons in line.
Mm-hmm.
But in the second episode, we think he comes back. Yeah, but we can tell that it's not really him because we see him practicing his voice in the mirror. So we know that's not really him.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets later revealed, of course, that it's his twin brother, Michael. What did you think about them being twins? Because that was just something that was new to me. Like, they've been shown as brothers before, obviously, but never twins, I think.
I don't think it was necessary, but I mean, Tom Ellis is a great actor, so anytime you can get more use out of him, then by all means.
What do you think of his American accent?
I I find that the British are better at reproducing American accents than we are at producing theirs. So it slipped occasionally because it always seems to, but it didn't bother me in any way. So it was just fine.
Okay, so Michael's thing is fear. He can, play on people's fears, make them reveal what they fear the most, and kind of like subtly manipulate them into doing things. I mean, he even reveals that he was the one who whispered in Lucifer's ear that eventually led to the rebellion in heaven.
Yeah, which sort, given how nice we've seen Lucifer be over the course of the 5 seasons of the show, it does sort of make sense that you would have to counterbalance it with the other side if you like being a bit of dicks. And as far as like the lore goes, it's a bit of a stretch, but I can sort of see it in the sense that where most angels' names translate to some distinction that they're given, like Raziel is the angel of the secrets of God, Uriel means light of God, Gabriel means strength of God, and so on. Michael's name is a declaration, Mihael, which means who is alike unto God. So it sort of makes sense that Michael is the arrogant one because he's sort of the odd man out, angelic name-wise. And if we go based on the idea that their names determine basically what their nature is or what their being is, then it makes sense that the one whose name is a declaration is also the arrogant asshole.
Though it is kind of a bit different because in a lot of media, Michael is shown as strong and noble, but in this one, he's a bit skittish and underhanded. And Lucifer is the one who never lies. But meanwhile, Michael does lie and will manipulate other people underhandedly for his own ends, and even just for petty revenge. I mean, a lot of the stuff that he does to Lucifer in the season stems from the fact that people were actually starting to like him again. Like his brothers and sisters in heaven were saying that maybe he is starting to change and become, the brother that they cared about before he rebelled.
And Michael, of course, is unhappy that his brother is getting all the attention and therefore decides to break it.
Yeah, and Amenadiel actually brings up a good point about Michael's position in heaven. How whenever he went up there, Michael had become the God's basically right-hand man, and that nobody speaks to God except Michael.
Which, yeah, I can sort of see. Again, giving it some kind of leeway, given that, the whole premise of Lucifer is, the devil's not such a bad guy after all. I can sort of like it's a subversion of classical lore, but it's not out of left field. There is a rationale you can jump from there to there, and it makes sort of sense. In fact, I've met and I've spoken to a lot of people, quote unquote, on the left-hand path is what the technical term is, and they will basically say something similar of like Lucifer's role is not as the trickster punisher character. He's supposed to be the source of knowledge and light, hence why he's called Lucifer, light bearer. I don't necessarily agree with that mind, but I've spoken to people who actually do seem to have something approximating this view on things, and most people that I've talked to that work with angels do say that, especially the archangels, tend to be bureaucratic dickheads in the sense that they're always playing by the rules and playing by the book. So I can totally see a version of Michael that is just, I want order at the expense of everything.
Yeah, but it's not even really about order. I mean, it's basically what I think. Whenever all the angels were together and they were essentially new beings, like basically what we would refer to as their childhood. I think Lucifer was the guy that everybody liked, and meanwhile Michael was the guy that everybody was afraid of.
Well, even in classical like Jewish folklore, you get that that before the fall, it is said that Lucifer was God's favorite angel and was the most beautiful one. So it
Uh,
does
in the,
sort of,
in this version, in the show version, we know that that's not true because in season 2 we found out that God's favorite son was a Menadil because his necklace reacted to the blade of death.
Mhm. It'll be interesting to see if any of these favoritism ideas get resolved in the second half of season 5. Given that, spoiler alert, at the end, while the boys are fighting, God shows up and says essentially, "Knock it off."
Yeah,
It-
let's get
it-
into why they were fighting.
yeah. Oh boy.
Okay, so Michael was manipulating a Menadil. He started whispering into his ear regarding his son, Charlie. And as it turns out, Charlie is not celestial. He is human. No, we don't know how. To be fair, he could end up not being only human because, as I said in season 4, there's never been a half angel before, so nobody knows how this works. I mean, his angelic powers might manifest like in puberty or something.
Well, we also know that in this universe, or in this multiverse rather, the angels' powers fluctuate based on how they view themselves. So it might just be that because the baby is a baby, he doesn't have enough mental wherewithal to go, I should have other powers than this. Though I found that personally kind of interesting that they said that there was no the technical term in the lore is Nephilim before this one, because a whole section of sort of extra canonical lore is about how the flood of Noah in the Bible was actually caused not by humanity sinning, but by angels who were supposed to be quote unquote the watchers of humanity, um, falling in love with mortal women and getting it on with said mortal women, producing a race of giants called the Nephilim. And it was for this offense that God was like, fuck it, I'm gonna have to clean up this whole mess, and proceeded to do the whole 40 days and 40 nights rain shit.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, obviously, the show takes certain liberties with biblical lore.
mhm.
But anyway, because of that, because fear of his son eventually having a human life, which will eventually mean that he will grow old and die, Amenadiel, he subconsciously uses powers because, again, angels self-actualize in the show, and so when he wanted bad things, when he wanted his son to avoid all the bad things in life, he froze time, which is really the only way to prevent those things from happening.
Uh-huh.
And it's interesting that we've seen him slow down time, but this is the first time that he's ever frozen it still.
Yeah.
Because even
Also,
he's freaked out by this.
yeah, also it bothered me just the tiniest bit because, dude, you're an angel. You know that mortal entities get an afterlife. So what the fuck difference does it make to
Yeah,
you?
he literally flew somebody off to heaven at the end of season 4.
Yeah, you would think that if anything, and this is kind of morbid, but you would think if anything you'd want him to die quicker so he could pop off to heaven and be with you, and you could have father and son time and shit. And again, that's kind of a dark way to take that, but by
I guess
angel logic, it should make sense.
though, I think the fear is that if he's raised on Earth, there is a chance that he could end up leading a bad life and being
And
condemned to hell.
therefore getting damned. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah, but his uncle's the devil, so
Yeah,
he'll be
yeah. At
fine.
the same point, it's like you and Lucy have been on good terms for like what 3 seasons now. I'm sure, I'm sure. Uncle Lucy would play favorites with his half human, half angel nephew there. So
Yeah,
it's like there's literally no downside to this. Either he lives a good life and you get to see him quicker when he dies, or he lives a bad life. you pull a few favors with Lucifer, and then we're off to the races again. Or he develops some kind of Nephilim powers in the interim, and he decides what he wants to do with his life and or afterlife.
All right, so that's why Menadil is freaked out, and time is frozen, and Michael shows up with Maze because Michael promised Maze that he will help her find her soul, which has been Maze's kind of journey throughout the first half of this season. She wants to become a soul because she feels like without one, no one will ever be able to make a real connection to her.
She wants to experience the better parts of being a human, essentially.
Yeah.
Which is a tried and true plot thread for like fantasy shows and whatnot at this point. So it's sort of you kind of saw it coming.
Yeah. And so that's why Maze is on Team Michael, and we get to see them fighting. I'm going to deal with Lucifer versus Maze and Michael, and it's a great fight scene. This show doesn't have a whole lot of fight scenes, but this one was actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
So they're fighting, and then I think Maze gets knocked away, and then Michael, Lucifer, and Amenadiel decide to take this one to the skies and bust out their wings. So that's when they hear a voice telling them to stop, and you see all this bright light, and you see a man walking down a staircase, and it's God.
Mm-hmm.
I forget who he's played by. We've definitely seen the guy before. He's the black dude that does all those Allstate commercials. But I forget the dude's actual name.
I didn't make that connection until just now, and now that makes it even funnier.
Yes.
It's almost as good as God being Morgan Freeman. I wish they had I wish Netflix had shelled out the money so they could have had God played by Morgan Freeman. I would have died laughing.
A small part of me wanted it to be Chuck from Supernatural, but
I have my issues with Chuck from Supernatural, especially lately, being capital G God and everything. So I'm glad at the very least this one has a potential to be nicer than that one because.
But he is really good. The guy is really good for the 5 seconds that we see him. Like his mannerisms seem very fatherly to them.
I'm looking forward to seeing more of him in season 5, part 2, and presumably season 6, unless season 5 crescendos with them killing God somehow. But that strikes me as something that would unravel the universe.
I don't think I highly doubt they're going to kill God, because while Lucifer may hate his father, like when he saw an opportunity to have his mom go back to heaven and fight it out with his dad, he instead sent her to another universe.
Yeah, and I also wonder if we're ever going to see the fallout of her being able to make her own universe. In the same way that I always sort of wish we had gotten with Amora in Supernatural, I sort of wish that she had taken up a few pointers from her brother and just decided to create stuff. But, you know, maybe that wasn't in the card because of the fact that she is literally supposed to be nothingness. Maybe that had something to do with it.
I feel we could talk about let's talk about Supernatural after the series finale.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because now it seems what with the pandemic, it doesn't seem like we're going to be getting much of a satisfactory season finale, and this bothers me.
Okay, so let's talk about the other parts of the season. The episode that took place in the 1940s. I think it was a very nice touch that they decided to do it all in black and white, kind of like an old school film noir.
The noir aspect was nice, and I'm kind of loving the fact that Lilith is getting kind of a renaissance in terms of being portrayed on TV and in movies and stuff. Because for the longest time, nobody but me knew jack about, well, me and anybody else that was like in the broader occult community knew who Lilith was. And now we've gotten versions of Lilith in Chilling Your Sabrina and in Lucifer. So I'm glad that Lilith is kind of making a comeback into the broader consciousness.
Okay, so she was played by the same actor that played Maze, and obviously a lot of the other actors were sprinkled out there somewhere because it's going to take on the form of Lucifer telling the story to Trixie. So
Yeah,
whenever they go for the
it's
hardball detective,
sort of a Wizard of Oz kind of thing of like you were there and you were there and you were there and so on.
yeah. So when they go for the hardball detective, they instead replace her with Chloe,
Mhm.
and I forget who Dan plays, but Amenadiel was kind of like this, like con man. He was this con man shopkeeper who
Mhm.
was basically selling all kinds of rituals and fake magic and whatnot. What did you think about that?
It, like I this is one of my complaints with Lucifer. I do wish we would see more proper magic and just like regular people using magic, because I feel like every time we see an angel or somebody like that using magic, the implication is they can do it because they are, a non-human being. But we don't really see the closest thing we've seen to proper, just average vanilla humans using magic was the one satanic ritual that Lucifer crashed, and I think it was season 1, where he's like, "What the fuck are you all doing?" Which was a great scene. Don't get me wrong. I just knowing especially now that Lucifer takes place in the same universe as the CW, and therefore um, includes people like Constantine and Zatanna from Smallville and so on, and of course Dr. Fate from Smallville, his only live action portrayal as yet.
That might
Um,
change with the Starborough show.
yeah. I really would like to see some average vanilla. Like we know that magical objects exist because of course the one dude who pretended to be dad for a bit because of Amulet, um, and everything. So we know that it happens, but we've never seen it done yet. And I'd like to see more of that. It does piss me off whenever I see a charlatan character, but more if I need to see a magical charlatan, I'd like them to be more along the lines of Dr. Facilier, where the magic they're peddling is real. It just so happens that there are unforeseen consequences to it, and or it doesn't last as long as it should. Like it lasts just long enough to sell people on the thing and then craps out or something like that. That would be more interesting to me.
So, what did you think about the plot of that episode with people being after Lilith's ring, which was a stone from the Garden of Eden that they revealed, and basically the rumor that it contained her immortality?
It didn't That part didn't quite make sense to me because the thing with Lilith is, according to the lore, um, the character of Lilith is based on the Sumerian demon, or the name Lilith comes from the Sumerian demon Lilitu. But in the Jewish and Hebrew side of things, Lilith was actually Adam's first wife because there are two the problem is there's always been two portrayals of the creation of man and woman in Genesis. There's Genesis chapter 1 where it says um, something along the lines of male and female he created them, which implies that he created them on equal terms. And then there's Genesis chapter 2 where it explains that um, God created Eve by taking Adam's rib so that so that she would be subservient to him. Well, in the lore, the sort of explainer for that was that God actually created two women for Adam. One that was created from the dust just as he was, which was Lilith, but because she was created from the dust just as he was, she wouldn't submit to him when it got time to do the being fruitful and prospering part. So she said the private secret name of God and it gave her a certain level of power over God, and thereby turned her into a powerful demoness. And then she left the garden of her own accord. The important bit there being that Adam and Eve didn't become mortal until after Eve and Adam took the fruit of the tree of knowledge. So it doesn't make sense for her to need it doesn't make sense for Lilith to need extra immortality, because by right she should have never lost her. She wasn't involved in the whole eating of the fruit nonsense.
Okay. And so I think at the end of the episode they put her immortality in her ring for real. And eventually she grew old, and that's when we meet her in the present where Maze tracks her down.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons she gives for not giving her children, who are the demons of hell, souls, is because she wanted it so that nothing could hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
Which obviously is not true, because Maze was extremely hurt by a lot of things, by being used by Menadeo when Eve left. So that didn't really wash out the way she wanted it to.
Yeah, it didn't really help anything. Interestingly, in the lore, Lilith was only the mother of the succubi, of female demons. And sort of the backstory there was, after she left the garden and told Adam to go fuck himself, she fell in love with the Jewish angel of death, which is Samael, and they inbred, and that created a bunch of female demons for Lilith to rule over. So it was interesting because, of course, Maze is a female demon. So even if Lilith is only the mother of the female ones, it makes sense for Maze to still refer to Lilith as mom.
So we got to see Lucifer interacting with Michael. What did you think of their dynamic of just Michael being jealous of Lucifer and Lucifer kind of looking down on Michael because Michael lacks a lot of the charm that Lucifer has, and Lucifer, like during the season, we see him that sometimes he's afraid that some of the things that happen in his life are just Michael's manipulations.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was very interesting. Again, being as the whole point of the show is the tables kind of being turned on the usual narrative. It did kind of make sense, and also I like the idea of them basically being stereotypical brothers to each other, because as someone with brothers, I think anyone with brothers knows those times when you get really at each other's throats and you really kind of resent each other for whatever you happen to be better at than them, or whatever they happen to be better at than you. So it's nice to see it translated into kind of family drama on like a celestial scale, which leads me to believe that that God is going to have to come in and be like, now boys, you play nice and you don't destroy the world while Daddy's away.
Yeah, or at least stop making it not spin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really like the fact that Dan became in on the secret now, because Michael called him as Lucifer, telling him to turn around, where Lucifer was using his devil face to entertain baby Charlie, which I thought was just hilarious that Charlie found his devil face more amusing than scary.
Yeah, it's cute, but kids are very resilient, and knowing how I grew up and how much I loved really dark and disturbing things as a kid, that almost doesn't surprise me. I think if anyone ever mocks or bullies that kid when she gets to be of like school age, she is going to enjoy the shit out of being like, I'm gonna sick my Uncle Lucy on you.
He doesn't really have to do that. He can just get his dad to stop time and then give him all atomic wedges.
That kid is gonna grow up so spoiled. I can't even imagine what weird like quasi angelic Christmas gifts he's gonna get when or birthday gifts when it comes time around for that.
Yeah. What do I get? What did I get for Christmas? The Spear of Longinus.
I can now control the destiny of the world. No big deal.
So yeah, Dan found out. Obviously, like everybody else, he freaked out, and he's at Charlotte's grave because he doesn't know what to do, and he starts praying. And then Michael comes down, and he really hams it up when he's talking to Dan. Like, he's got the flowing angel-like robe and everything, like lights behind him. He's really putting on a show.
Yeah, you can tell he enjoys this. You can definitely tell he's enjoying this. It's funny.
Yeah, and so he convinces Dan that the only way to keep his family safe is to shoot Lucifer. This comes at an interesting moment because when Dan does finally track down Lucifer and shoot him, he is invulnerable, even when he is around Chloe. And they talk about this in the show, and Chloe fears it's because that Lucifer is closing himself off to her.
He doesn't care about him anymore, or
yeah,
he doesn't
but
care
I think
about him anymore.
it's because, all right, when you're in a couple and you finally open yourself up and be together fully, you become stronger than you were when you were just by yourself. So that
yeah, I expect something similar. It's more of he's accepted himself and he's accepted her, and being around her makes him feel better. Therefore, he is better because angel self-actualization magic.
Yeah, he is now feels that he is stronger and in a more firm place now. Therefore, he's invulnerable. And
which makes me think that Michael's first instinct is going to be to go after Chloe because she's the vulnerable one in the relationship, and then Lucifer is going to have to go all Kill Bill on his ass.
I do like Lucifer's reaction where he's just like, "Huh, I'm immortal. Do it again. Let's see if this holds."
Yeah, let's see how far this goes. I want to play with this.
And I think one scene where he was just like shooting himself or stabbing himself just to make sure that,
like as much as you love Lucifer in this show, you can kind of see where that attitude of let's play with this and see how far it goes probably did lead to him playing the devil role more than I think even he intended to, because I can see him like meeting Adam and Eve for the first time and being like, oh hello, let's see how far these toys can go before they break, and then proceeds to do all the things that the devil is known to do.
And I think it shows personal growth because before, when Lucifer got shot, he would get angry and immediately like try to kill whoever shot him. But in this one, he like planned a prank on him. Like that's all he really plans to do. Just like get him back, but not in not in a murderous way.
To be fair, being angry about being shot is an understandable reaction, even if you are immortal. Because you got it. I've always thought of the line from Wishmaster. I may be invulnerable and immortal, but that hurt like hell anyway.
Yeah, but while Lucifer is planning this, Chloe is investigating a serial killer, and I like the serial killer aspect of this season. I forget what kind of serial. Oh yeah, he cuts their vocal cords, right? And he's called the Whisper Killer. And Chloe and Lucifer try to track him down, but as it turns out, the first guy that they find isn't actually the guy because he gets the details wrong on the first couple of victims. So Chloe eventually realizes that it's not the guy, and she ends up being kidnapped. Now, Lucifer and crap, what's the forensic girl's name?
That's a good question. I should know the answer to that. I have spontaneously forgotten as well. Fuck.
I know Lucifer calls her Miss Lopez, but I forget her first name. Screw it, we'll come back to that. Anyway, they're investigating the serial killer. They eventually find out that it is her boyfriend that she had been dating for the last couple of episodes. He's the serial killer, and eventually they do catch him. But as it turns out, he's not the one that took Chloe. As it turns out, it was Michael who's keeping her in some strange cave, and he tries to turn her against Lucifer. So he kind of did go for his vulnerable side, but just not in like hurting her type of way, just trying to get in her head as he does.
I think this is more of a, oh, Daddy gave you something pretty, I'm gonna break it, and then we'll see how you like it. Kind of. I keep seeing all these contrivances as just two bratty angels, basically, bitching at each other over whoever Daddy's favorite is, basically. It makes everything really funny when you sort of boil these large cosmic events down to just nope. It's just a family having a tantrum, because of course.
Yeah,
And if they ever bring Mom back into it, I think that'll be funny too.
now that they brought God into it, I would actually like it if they brought the mom back, just to see the interaction between them two, because they had her interacting with the guy who thought he was God because of the amulet. I think they called it the amulet of life.
Mm-hmm.
But as we find out, that wasn't really him. So I'd actually like to see the two of them, how they interact, especially now that she's been gone for a while.
And presumably maybe creating her own universe. Like I could honestly see her coming back and strutting like she's all that because she's created a new universe.
I'm pretty sure she would think it was better than this one.
Yeah, and she'd be all gloating like, well, this is a nice little universe you have here, honey, but I think the one I made is better. And then God, of course, can look at her and like, the one you made, and then she could be like, well, your son slashed open a portal for me with that sword, and I decided to make one of my own. and then God like looks over at Lucifer like, Lucy, what did you do?
One of the things I also want to talk about is Chloe finding out that she's a literal gift from God. Yeah, her reaction to that one was, honestly, I think it was realistic, because if you found out that the only reason you exist was to be the girlfriend of somebody else,
that sort of it fucks with all of the, especially with Chloe, because her whole thing is she's all about the law and about doing what's right and so on and so on. And so relative to that, what does that mean now that she knows that, she basically almost got it from God's mouth himself, like, no, I made you just as a present for Lucy because he was having a bad day, basically. That's really got to screw with your confidence.
I think it was worse than that. I think God creating Chloe was a way of an apology for the fallout of the failed rebellion, because we kind of get hints throughout the show that God still looks out for Lucifer. Like when he was shot and he prayed to God to just, I don't care about me, just save Chloe, please. And then God does, and we see him give Lucifer a vision that his mom is broken out of hell. Like, he's still paying attention to what his son is doing. Like,
yeah, I think it's a little bit like when a teenager goes through their like edgy edgelord punk rock phase, the dad, he still cares. It's just, you're going through you're going through the angel equivalent of puberty. Call me back in a few thousand years when you've calmed down a little bit. We'll sort this out. It'll be fine.
Yeah. So that did screw her up for a little while, but honestly, it would screw me up too.
Yeah, like a large part of what it is to be human is finding out what the meaning of your life is, and if it turned out that like you only existed to help somebody else and their journey, it sort of feel like, well, what good am I other than that then? Now,
It also
granted, I don't know if because like we were just talking, because God cared in this universe, I think that if Chloe asks God, what's all this about me just being a present for Lucifer thing, um, he'll say, yes, he'll say something along the lines of, that was one of your purposes. Did you really think it was the only one? Because I don't think God is one of those, I don't think this version of God is the type to just give everyone one purpose. I think it's sort of a you serve multiple purposes for multiple reasons, kind of killing as many birds as possible with one stone kind of thing.
not only that, but it would call into question the whole free will thing. Like, I was just created for Lucifer. Is the fact that I'm in a relationship with him my own free will, or just the plan
Yeah.
of God?
If I was literally created to fall in love with you, then do I actually have a say in falling in love with you, or you falling in love with me or not? Did you
Yeah,
fall in love with me for stuff that I did or stuff that I was predestined to do, kind of thing?
yeah. I think it was just um, because when Lucifer first met Chloe, he was vulnerable about her around her, but he wasn't in love with her. He was just curious.
Yeah, it's like
I think
this is the only person that this has ever happened to. What the fuck's going on? I need to figure this out. Poke, poke, poke.
I think Lucifer gave Chloe the ability to affect Lucifer, but I think everything after that was free will, because I don't think
Mhm.
God would create a person without free will like that. When everybody else has free will.
Yeah, it's the other. It's the same as the creating somebody for just one purpose thing. I don't think. I don't think God is that sloppy. I think if he was going to do something like that, he would make sure it all fit together in the grand scheme of the cosmic plan. And if Chloe is that important to Lucifer, and Lucifer is that important to the cosmic balance, then it logically follows, therefore, that Chloe must be important to the cosmic balance. And if she's that important to the cosmic balance, then he better be doubly sure that every aspect of her is good, so that nothing fucking happens with the cosmic balance while they're at it.
Yeah. So Amenadiel's journey this season was really all just about him being a dad and realizing, what that means. And basically just accepting that his son is the most important aspect of his life right now, and him being okay with that. Because in the beginning, he's running Lucifer's club, and he's trying to basically create a relationship with Dan that Lucifer had with Chloe, but it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work out too well. And eventually, he just comes to realize that all I really need to be right now is a father to my son, and that's all I
Mm-hmm.
really need.
And I think that's a particularly interesting plot thread to raise now that we are getting God in the God in the series, actually, because I feel like there's going to be some parallels between what Amendiel's going through with his child and what God goes through with basically all creation.
I think it
Um,
would be interesting because a lot of the earlier seasons were basically about Lucifer's relationship with his father, that particular father son dynamic.
yeah.
And
Oh, the daddy issues.
yeah, so I think it'd be interesting if we see, okay, the father had this kind of effect on his son. Now that the son is a father, how is that going to play out with his son?
And the idea of God as a grandfather is also interesting. Like, if we take the angels as like his direct offspring, his and mom's direct offspring, then the Nephilim kid is going to be his direct grandchild, which sort of raises its own quandaries.
Yeah. Imagine somebody examining that kid's DNA.
Like, I'm just imagining like Thanksgiving, like just. But Daddy, is Grandpa showing up? And Mendiel going, son, your grandfather is literally gone. I think he might be a little busy. And then God comes to the door anyway. I'm never too busy for my family. And then like creation just stops for a day.
One thing that I've always wondered about Lucifer, those, and I remember the Vertigo comic, so I wouldn't Jesus play into all this.
I I don't think they ever mention I don't think they ever mentioned Jesus and the whole thing because um the way it tends to work is with shows and comics and things, they give lip service to the fact that the Abrahamic religions are the basis for the most powerful God, but they don't really get into specifics so as to not piss anyone off, which
Yeah,
is fair.
yeah, that's fair. So, I think we've talked about all the major plot points of this season. Is there anything that we missed?
No, we talked about Lilith. We talked about the relationship between Lucifer and Michael. We talked about the baby. We talked about the introduction of God. I think we covered just about everything. I think.
Okay. Do you want to move on to talking about The Magician season 3? Because we've been planning to do that one for a while now.
Well, weren't we on? I thought we were on season 4. That because
Right. It was
okay,
season 4.
okay, because yeah, season 4 was the big death scene and everything, and oh my God.
Yeah, I'm never gonna be listen. I'm never gonna be able to listen to "Take on Me" the same way
I
again.
know that song is both ruined and made awesome forever. Like I can't listen to it without crying.
So, let's start out in the beginning. They got mind wiped at the end of season 3 and given new personalities essentially. But at the end of season 3, the mistake of the gods was trapped inside Elliot's body because he was the last person to kill it. And so he finds Quentin in his new identity. So, yeah, they start off the season together. Meanwhile, everybody else has been given new identities and they're living out their lives until I believe it's Katie, who was mating to a police officer, runs into a
Yeah.
dude. What was that?
Oh, sorry. My house is going through some remodeling, so there might occasionally be noises of like hammering and stuff. I'll move to a different area in my room that'll hopefully make the noise less noticeable.
Okay.
Okay. I can actually unplug my phone and move it now because I have a phone that doesn't die when it immediately gets unplugged. Yay. You never really notice how much you miss that until you can't move your phone or anything, and then it becomes really, really noticeable. Anyway, back to Magician season 4.
Yeah, so Katie runs into a hex witch in her new identity as a police officer and basically rediscovers magic and the fact that all their identities were based off of a comic book.
Or rather, or I wasn't quite sure if it was based on a comic book or if the comic book was what Dean Fogg used to sort of fix the identities in place. I sort of
I
had
think
the
um I think the comic book was used as the basis for their identities. I think that's where he got the idea to make them these people. Like, I need new identities for all these people. It would take him a while to craft each of them individually.
Mhm.
So that's where he got. So he just took them from that comic book. Because he even says that the book is not very well known. So, and
True.
we actually see
So,
that the thing that's powering the spell is this massive battery that Julia in her new persona actually finds because she
yeah.
gets to go back to Break Bills, which is a lot less magical now that the library has taken over control of the
Well,
flow of
because
magic.
they have magic rations, which yeah, fuck you. Like if I existed in the universe of the magicians, I have no doubt that I would probably be working for the library, but as an outside spectator, also fuck you. E- Even though like internally and logically it makes sense what you're doing, I cannot abide this for plot reasons.
Also, I mean, it wasn't even that they were doing it honestly. Like they said, like, yeah, these are the reported levels of magical flow in the atmosphere. Here are the actual levels of magical flow in the atmosphere.
Well, of course, we realize later on that's not Zelda's fault to her credit. I think that if Zelda had been in charge of everything from the get-go, people probably would be a lot more satisfied, and those levels probably would be more sincere.
I actually
Um,
don't think that it was right for him to put a cap on something that is literally a natural resource.
yeah, that there is that like. But I've always had that problem. Pretty much as soon as they introduced the wellspring, I was kind of annoyed. The fact that all magic flows from one very kind of arbitrary place. And I know, like in proper magic terms, the kind of magic they have in the magicians is called chaos magic, because it relies upon sort of random ambient currents of energy rather than naturally occurring drawing energy from naturally occurring sources. Um, but being that as it may, it always did kind of annoy me that. So you're telling me that if somebody fucks with the wellspring, everything is toast. Has no one ever looked into magic that doesn't revolve around the wellspring? Because it seems like
I think
if I were in this universe, that would be like job one for me. Like if I
I
knew that
actually
all
think
magic
that
came from the wellspring, then my first response as a magician would be, okay, I'm gonna devote all my resources to finding magic that doesn't flow from this wellspring, so that if it ever gets fucked, um, this isn't a problem.
um I think the wellspring only works on that world because after Ember took a shit in it, magic was screwed up, but it was only on Fillory. It wasn't.
No, it affected Earth too, and I remember distinctly, even in the trailers for season three, when Magic was getting all fucked, or season two when Magic was getting fucked by Ember taking a shit in it. If it dies in Fillory, it dies everywhere, and of course, so I think that it was the source of the whole kit and caboodle, and that was why the keys were important, was because in the previous season, was because it had, unless you were a god or godlike being that had magic inherently woven into your nature, you didn't have shit when the wellspring was off.
So one thing I didn't like was that they made that one planet that one universe so important. Like you introduced like the fountains that show that there are thousands of other universes out there. Why not wait until they have to travel to one of them and explore that one?
Yeah. Also, it since there is a fountain for every universe, then sh- logically you would think that the magic would be drawn from the fountains, not the wellspring. Like, because I thought that was kind of the whole point of the fountains, was that they each represented their universe and the magical flow between universes, unless all the water from all the various dimensions that we see in the fountains is just wellspring water that's sent through the pipes. And it really annoyed me that there were like magical pipes that were just sort of there in
Oh yeah,
every aspect of
when
reality.
Mortimer comes to turn off the magic.
Like that didn't bother me so much because he was a god or an equivalent to a god, so that sort of made kind of sense. But the idea that the library literally could just jack all the pipes and like these are ours now and we control these. Like what?
Yeah,
You mean that there are literal physical pipes of magic?
yeah, that's one thing that
What?
bothered me. Um, let's talk about the mistake of the gods, because as it turns out, in season 4, there are two of them.
Uh-huh. And there probably would have been a lot more, except apparently um, the younger of the two that remain ate all the other ones because his sister got jacked and therefore he was pouting and therefore ate all of the other ones.
Wait, really? I don't remember that.
Yeah, apparently there was like a whole bunch of them, and after spoiler alert, the library takes one of them and breaks it up into multiple pieces to create artificial gods, essentially.
Yeah,
Um, the one that was left, or the one that we first were introduced to, was so lonely and so distraught because apparently its sister was its like fraternal twin, that it ate all the other ones.
yeah, and it has a very childlike mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the other, like the sister, like the older twin, was essentially like the one that gave it like its purpose, like the leader of the two.
Yeah, the sister was definitely the schemer of the two, and it sort of made me feel like they should have just got the younger one a different body and then taught it how to be good, because I feel like that was how the character development of the monster was heading, because it was starting to be quote unquote nice, and then its sister was just a really really bad influence on it.
Yeah,
Um,
but one
so
thing I never understood is how they managed to capture her in the first place. Like, shouldn't she just have been able to swipe her hand and obliterate all four of them?
you would think that, but then again, we see times when, like with the Rhinoman Ultra from season 2, or when they're God touched, or when they have an exposure to godlike power, that they can at least pose a threat. But the thing with the monsters was that they were essentially to gods what gods were to mortals.
I
So
think they were somewhere in power level between Elder God and God.
yeah, because apparently you can take one of the monster creatures and make like 4 separate gods out of them, even if they're lesser ones. So like, um, you would think that there would be some, even if they were god powered at the moment, it doesn't seem like it would do very much. Like we see Quentin and Quentin and Alice basically take in months worth of wellspring water, and it basically doesn't even ruffle their hair mostly. Like they get one good shot in, and half a um incorporate bond going, and then it craps out. So
Yeah,
yeah,
let's talk about Alice this season. She starts off trapped in the library, and she made that deal with them, but then she turns and destroys the key so that uh, magic will go away because she feels that magic ruins everything. And she's in jail. She eventually manages to escape with the help of Santa Claus.
yeah, which is funny. But it didn't really make sense to me because I remember in season 1, in the first episode where we see the Netherlands, one of the beast henchmen that watches the fountains says that they stole Santa Claus's sleigh and killed him. So is this like the second Santa Claus, the guy that took over after that one? Maybe
I
I
mean,
thought that was kind of the implication, was that um, somebody had taken over for a Santa Claus after that happened.
it's possible that he wasn't actually dead. I
Yeah,
mean,
it is possible that Santa Claus is just that much of a badass that he can just pretend to be dead when he's faced with these people, and then it's also possible that he could just make another sleigh and that it wouldn't matter. So maybe.
so Alice escapes with Santa Claus, and eventually, um, I honestly forget what Alice does in this season. It's been
Um,
like a long time since I watched it.
she steals the books because now that magic is back, the library has access to whatever spell lets them write all of everybody's books again, which means they'll be able to find the newly awakened gang, and that's bad. Um, so she takes the books and rewrites them, but also uses one to cheat and save Quentin from getting obliterated by the monster. Um,
Yeah, one
which,
of them.
which they keep saying that changing the books has consequences, but we never really get to see that.
It's
Um,
possible that because she didn't change Quentin's fate of dying, only delayed it.
mhm.
It was like,
That might have been the consequence, maybe. But
yeah,
on the topic of consequences that never really get resolved, they built the shit out of Irene McAllister last season and how she had absorbed all the magic of the Fairy Queen, and we literally never see her again. They use they use one spell to hide from her in the heist episode, and then like that spell never falters, and she never finds them, and she never finds out they know they're themselves again. Like you like I was thinking that they were building up way more with Irene. That's my one complaint about season 5 being the ending, is that I now need to know what the story with Irene was.
spoilers
And
because I still haven't seen season 5.
okay,
But
um,
can we talk about one of my favorite scenes? Is where they have to get a Dewey, like this little token that allows you to use magic for however long.
yeah,
And
it's a tiny battery the library created, and because they're librarians, they
named it
um
after Melville Dewey.
yes, which is funny. I
So
actually for my senior project, I volunteered in the library, so that was, and I was in charge of the card catalog and restructuring it, so that was a nice touch for me. But yes, the magical what
underground poker game.
yeah, the push is what they called it. That was actually my favorite too, but for slightly different reasons.
I
Um,
just like the tricks that they did, the different tricks that they used, where one of them would attack and then they would counterattack, and eventually they ran out of magic in the area, so they had to do it old school.
and yeah, that was a really smart move on Quentin's part. Well, if I can't win in a straight up magic duel, then let's just move all the magic out of the way, and I'll essentially card trick my way out of this, which he did. But I really liked that scene, especially because I've actually used probability magic to cheat at cards before, and obviously it's smaller scale than what they were doing, but
Literally
their
changing the face of cards.
yeah, their description of it and shit was very much accurate to how that kind of spell works. You sort of weave a web of probability around the cards and just make sure that the good probability is drawn to whoever's doing the casting rather than the other people at the table. So yeah, that was nice. That it finally gave Quentin something to do because he's always been good with cards, and B, it made me magically nostalgic because that was something I did when I was like 15 and first started using magic for more practical shit. Don't judge me.
No, I'm not. But we do get to see. I believe it's Julia deal with the fallout from using all of her god power to recreate the keys, where she is kind of stuck between mortal and immortal, where kind of like it's the Prometheus thing. She dies, but then she just comes back to life.
Yeah, she still has the power. She just can't externalize any of it, so it just maintains her immortality because it has nothing else to do. Which does make me wonder if eventually Reynard would have gotten his powers back, and that pisses me off.
I don't think it. I don't know if that would be the case because I think they actually just like removed the source of his power and gave it to Julia.
Yeah,
'Cause I feel like
they took his spark, but remember the whole reason Julia figures out that she's immortal is because Renard says even impotent gods are hard to kill. So presumably he has something similar to what she had. But at the same time, Julia had to go to get the binder to figure out how to either get her god power back or return to being fully human. So
why would you return to being human?
well, because she didn't get to ask, or she didn't get to decide, which is the other thing. And I like that they finally gave Penny something to do that isn't I have no more powers, because it seemed like every time, yeah, every time they needed Penny to do something when it was Penny 40, it was, well, now my hands don't work. Well, I'm stuck working for the library. Well, they gave every excuse for him to not have powers to use, and that annoyed me. So I'm glad with Penny 23 they developed some kind of storylines for him that didn't involve just being the worst ever.
I mean, it is kind of shitty that he got his hands cut off by the beast.
That was 40.
Yeah, that last fight scene with the beast in season 1 was horrifying because at the end of the things you think the good guys are gonna win, not get slaughtered.
Well, I mean, given how powerful Martin was, it sort of was inevitable. But especially given that there have been 40 of these time loops, and they keep losing. One thing, I actually started rewatching season 1 the other day, and something occurred to me. Why wouldn't Jane just tell the gang who she was? Because like she comes up with this pretense of Eliza and everything, and I'm just like, why?
I don't know,
Like,
man. She tried it 40 times. Maybe she tried it the first 10.
yeah. Maybe one of the 40 times was, let's get right into this. I'm Jane. My brother Martin is the Beast. Also, by the way, Julie and Quentin, it's kind of your fault, but don't worry about it. Never mind. Like you would think at some point, she would have tried just, hey Quentin, you know how you've always been worried that, or you've always wanted Hillary to be real, and you've always wondered what happened to the Chapmans and everything. Well, hi, Jane, nice to meet you. Now, my brother Martin is a beast that destroyed all of Hillary because of something that you did because time travel. Help me fix it, or we're doomed. You would think, but again, maybe it is one of the timelines that happened. We just didn't see it. But
all right, can we talk about my least favorite part of the season? I don't know if it's your least favorite part, but when Margot gets to go the pickaxes, she runs into this like society of desert dwellers.
oh yes, the internalized misogynies of it all.
Yeah, and like here's the thing that I've always wondered: like they have that society because whenever a woman is under threat, the desert spirits will come and kill whoever is threatening them. But okay, don't you think in that society before it was a patriarchy that was just a really brutal matriarchy where the women were essentially just using the spirits to rule with an iron fist? Because that's how I imagine things would have gone. Like if you have this power, that will
Yeah.
allow you to destroy your enemies absolutely. Why
If
wouldn't
every time I cry, some entity shows up and possesses the person that's making me feel bad and either kills them or resolves whatever issue I'm having, I'm gonna use that. But I think the implication is they just never figured out what the demons were or the spirits were because they didn't have Margot's sight from the fairy eye.
I think that they either knew a long time ago and it changed, because there were people who knew, like the men, like who were in charge, secretly knew what was going on.
It's possible they were the first ones to figure it out, so they made up the lie to cover their asses. I think
Or
that's
I
sort of the
think
implication. It's sort of a if you ever seen the movie Sausage Party, it seems kind of like that sort of situation.
if it wasn't that way before, it's definitely going to be that way now that she's spilled the
Oh
beans.
yeah, it's definitely they're gonna go full matriarchy at this point. Or all the men are just gonna up and leave, which is frankly the smart thing to do at this point. Just go like Felorian MGTOWs need to be a thing. Just
Man,
men
I
going
gotta
their
say,
own way,
I
namely
that
not
society.
going.
Once for various reasons, that's going to be a bloodbath. You get it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but honestly, the most positive way this could go is all the men in the desert just go MGTOW, and then the women make use of the spirits to wait on them hand and foot for the rest of time, and they become like basically a Felorian equivalent to the Amazons, kind of. That's the ideal. That's sort of the only positive ending to this. The other one involves the men being all enslaved and shit.
Yeah. What did you think about the when they extracted them using the incorporeal bond to essentially make it so that they cannot leave the bottles? Because the first one being fueled by the wellspring water, that would make sense. But what do you think about the second one, where they basically just had like almost every magician in the world focusing on one thing at the same time?
Um, I yeah, that bugged me.
How would you coordinate that?
Yeah, there's just too many moving parts, especially because we know um that so much of the magician style magic is about external circumstances and how they influence things. Like the planets need to be in this alignment, or you need to account for this variable and this variable and this variable and so on. It's very much
And your
like
emotional state is
yeah,
a factor too.
it's very much the term is Neoplatonic. That sort of philosophy as it is applied to real magic. The idea that magic is kind of like mathematics, and you have to calculate for various different variables and things. So my only problem there is there's just so many moving parts to that. I can't even like
Also, how would
this.
you coordinate across different time zones? Because we see people around the world doing this as well.
Yeah, and the more complicated a spell, the more hard it is to and again, I'm just going off of real world ritual magic. The more complicated and intricate a spell, the more energy and the more specific the kinds of energy you need to get it to work, and the more variables you add into something, the harder it is to make it work. That's why coven work has never made sense to me, because it's hard enough to deal with your own personal variables, let alone the personal variables of everyone else in the circle, and so on. But that just like if an average difficult spell is a 1 in a million shot, then that is a one in. It can't even like. I don't even think there's a number to count that high shot of just how incalculable that must be.
Yeah. Like they seal the gods in the bottles somehow, and they take them to the mirror dimension, which has a spot that essentially leads to literal nothingness, like just total oblivion.
Yeah.
And they throw them in there, and eventually the guy from the library who, like the people before him, is trying to become a god, like smashes the mirror, and we see Quentin, who actually discovered his discipline,
His
trying
minor
to,
mendings.
yeah, minor repair of small objects or something like that.
Yeah.
So he repairs it, but because magic is dangerous in the mirror dimension, when he repairs it, it kind of sparks out of control and kills him and the library guy.
Yeah.
I feel like Quentin could have made it if he just fixed it, threw the bottle into the mirror, like behind him, and just ran like a bat out of hell. Because he stands there as the effect of the spell washes over him.
I think he knew that there was no way out of this, and then of course we get into the ultimate philosophical question, which is posed in probably the most emotionally effective death scene ever filmed on television. By the way, was I doing something brave to save my friends, or did I finally find an effective way of killing myself? That line just all of my emotions just get evoked in that moment. Just God damn it! Why is Quentin such my self insert in this moment? Why?
I feel like Quentin knows the answer, but just doesn't want to.
He needed the confirmation, which
Yeah, because if you wanted to kill yourself, there's about the stuff he went through the last 4 years. There's about 1,000 different ways he could have done it, but I think he knew that this was the only way. It's like what Captain America says: "Are you going to be the guy who lays on the grenade for the sake of everybody else?" And I think Quentin cared enough about his friends, cared enough about magic itself, and to be that guy at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it then goes on to his kind of like funeral scene, which is basically a ruined Take on Me for me for the rest of my life.
Yeah. The Take on Me is just forever both the most emotionally effective song in the world and also never can be listened to when I'm feeling happy or it will ruin everything. It is very effective when I am sad though, for catharsis reasons. But yeah, oof. Best death scene ever. And yes, I'm including Tony Stark's sacrifice in Endgame. I think that was literally my reaction when I first watched that episode was, how the hell did the Magicians have a more satisfying ending than Endgame?
I have no idea. I think with the Magicians, it's because superheroes are much more like they're larger than life. And so while we like them, it's very hard to connect them on a personal level. Meanwhile, like I have felt very much like Quentin, as I'm sure you have.
Yeah, there. It seems like every time I have a thought or stray random thought, Quentin would say something to the effect of exactly what I was just thinking. Like in season one, my favorite episode of season one, which is Remedial Battle Magic, when they do the emotion bottling, and Quentin's response is, "This must be exactly what the Vulcan ritual of Kolinar is like." That was literally almost word for word exactly what my thought was when I was watching that scene for the first time, and I'm like, Quentin, get out of my head!
One of the my best Quentin moments is actually in the first episode where Quentin finds this the Fillory book. I forget what number it was, but it was the book that never got published, called The Magicians, and like he is nerding out about it. Like this is the thing that he loves. You can tell he's passionate about it, and his friend is just telling him that you need to grow up. You need to give up on like this stuff because it's for kids. Blah blah blah. And like I've been in that position where like there are things that I love, and people have been telling me that I shouldn't love them.
Yeah, and it gets to be the most insufferable thing in the world. Like, and you honestly, and the way he reacts is perfect too. Like, well, it got us through high school and college and shit. So what the fuck does it? does it matter if it's for kids? And I have to agree. Like, if it's the thing that keeps you alive, then what how can anyone tell you to give it up?
Yeah.
Um, and of course, like his entire reaction to learning that he's a magician and everything. Speaking as somebody who has practiced magic now for 14 years, fucking hell. Um, it seems like every time you study a new area of magic or you manage to make a new spell work, you have that same "oh shit, I'm doing this" reaction. So when he first is showing off to the dean and he makes the card thing happen, and he has that moment of "oh shit, I'm doing this," and then immediately passes out. Like, I've been there so many times in so many different situations of like, no, oh shit, this isn't all in my head. This isn't just my psychology playing tricks on me. This is actually having a physical impact on the rest of the world. Fucking hell.
Yeah,
I've
that kind
never.
of reminds me of when I was playing rugby. Like when I first started out, I wasn't very good, and it's a lot of grueling physical training, and you know, I just was giving my best, but I didn't feel like I was going anywhere with it. And then, when I scored my first try, I was just like, "Holy crap! I actually did it!" Now
Yeah.
I want to lay down now because everything hurts.
Uh-huh. And that is another aspect of magic that they get right is after you manage a spell, like an honest to goodness things that affect the rest of the world spell, you are fucked up for a good 3 days at least. Um, there is no idea of magic without consequences, and yeah, and that's one of the reasons. And I'm not saying that every fantasy series has to get everything 100% right for me to enjoy it, but it adds so much to the enjoyment when they at least try to get things right. And the Magicians was always really good about that. So it just made it so much easier for me to focus on like the characters and things because I wasn't constantly pulled out of how the hell did you make this happen and this happen and this happen because I got it. I could literally see like you can see in moments when when they're doing spells and you can almost see the calculations running in their head if you know kind of what they're aiming at.
So, can
It's
I
what.
talk about? We haven't talked about the character of Josh this season. Um, gets involved with Margot.
Mhm.
Um, they become a thing, and he also goes through this problem with his lycanthropy
Mhm.
called I forget what it was called, but it was essentially where
The
his
quickening, I
lycanthropy.
think, is what it was called.
What was it called?
Was it? Wasn't it the quickening?
It was something like the quickening, I think. But
I'm pretty sure it was at least close to the quickening because of the fact that they literally made a Highlander reference. Which again, dear writers and magicians, get the fuck out of my head. Um,
so Josh had the problem of his lycanthropy was urging him to either have sex with someone, which would transfer the lycanthropy, or to kill someone,
mhm.
which, if they survived, would also transfer the lycanthropy.
And Margot, like the stone cold boss that she is, literally sacks up for it.
Yeah, because he tries to find a way to like get rid of it or delay it or end it somehow, and he just can't. Like this is something that he just cannot run away from anymore. And Margot just essentially takes a bullet for the rest of the world, and
Well,
it's
I also think that she is the person to be least likely harmed by it because she is the kind of person who is kind of animalistic just by herself. She has kind of almost that sociopathic edge to her that I don't think being a wolf or a lycanthrope every couple of months or every month is going to bother her all that much. It's just more of what she already kind of was. So it all sort of worked out for everyone's benefit.
yeah. And
I can also see Margot really having fun with the lycanthropy as opposed to how everyone else would be kind of mortified by it. Like, oh shit, what if I kill someone? Margot would find some way to use that to her advantage because that's just how Margot is. And
basically,
incidentally,
it's a. I mean, it would make a great threat.
yeah, and incidentally, dear writers that try to write bitch characters as likable, study Margot. There is your blueprint.
Actually, Margot is my least favorite character.
I don't know if I can say who my least favorite character is because I like everybody for various different reasons. I think I
My
could be
tie would be my tie for first would be Elliot and Quentin.
Elliot grew on me, especially after the monster stuff and after the time travel stuff in season 3, where I believe it was called Life in a Day.
Yeah, that was a really good episode.
It took me a really long time to get the hang of Elliot because both Elliot and Margot when they're first introduced are literally the mean girls that you meet in any school or college setting. So it's a testament to the writing of the magicians that Margot and Elliot went from being the stock mean girl characters to some of the most likable and relatable people in the show.
I started liking Elliot when he opened up to Quentin about the first time he used
Oh,
telekinesis.
yep. Funny little irony. They don't tell you magic doesn't come from talent; it comes from pain. That
Yeah,
whole, yeah.
where
Um,
he was being bullied and he
he wished just for a moment that a bus or something would come crashing into the person, and then it happened, and he got a nosebleed and ruined his favorite shirt, and his bully died.
yeah. And I like that it's not something that he brushes off. Like it's something that still weighs on him.
Yeah, even when he introduces it, he says like, I'm going to tell you something deep and dark and personal. Ready, go. And yeah, that is the first moment where they try with Elliot to be like, oh, this isn't going to be just the gag character or the comic relief character. This is actually a character we're supposed to care about. Yay. My favorite character, kind of, it always teeters between Quentin, Alice, and Julia, depending. Because I like I said, Quentin is my shy, introverted, geeky side, and Julia is sort of the part of me that comes out whenever I do anything magic related. And I feel like Alice, especially after her whole Niffin thing in season 2, she sort of mirrors my dark side and when I get pissed off.
I feel like Alice, at least human Alice, more resembles my uh in how I get about hobbies and things. Like she will be like super knowledgeable about something, but then like she'll be very hesitant to show it off. Like when she did the
Yeah,
glass
like
force
I
spell.
literally can't be as good as I want to be because people will be scared and ashamed and I'll have to deal with pressure and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, like when I'm having conversations with like people about a topic I know, but like you're wrong, and I can prove you're wrong, but doing so would not be worth it.
Mm-hmm. It's that moment when you haven't slept in 2 days, but somebody says something so stupid, and you want to go on a 2 hour lecture of whatever stupid thing they did wrong, and you're like, yeah, but I haven't slept in 2 days, so if I do this, am I gonna embarrass myself? Am I gonna say it wrong? Yeah, that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
I've had similar days.
Also, for completely other reasons, I like Alice is one of my favorites because the woman who plays her, Olivia Dudley, is just gorgeous.
Honestly, all of the women in Magicians are bangable
Oh,
in various
absolutely.
different in various different ways. Like I mostly prefer dudes, and yet if I had the option of Julia, Alice, or Margot, I would probably say yes to all of them.
You could do, or you could do like Quentin did in his dream, where Penny invaded. He's like,
Yeah, yeah.
"You're a
Oh
genius."
God. Um, yeah. Minor side note: there really is no the only male eye candy we get in Magicians are the minor characters who die in like one episode. Like I
That's more of a
remember,
you thing.
well, yes, but as long as we're talking about the bangableness of the characters from Magicians, all the women are a yes, and like maybe if I were drunk, I could conceive of Penny, maybe. Um, but as far as like actual like made me sit up in my chair and go, okay, this guy is attractive. The only two characters I can think of are the prince from season, I think it was 2, that Margot is going to be marrying,
The black
or
guy.
no, not Prince S, the Stone Queen's son, the one that like she mistakes that she's going to have to marry his younger brother, and then the older brother shows up, and he starts complimenting her because in his culture it is basically a matriarchy. Um, and then he gets murdered so the younger brother can marry her instead. And then
I remember that event, but I don't remember what the dude looked like.
the other one that I remember feeling that way too was the guy with the peaches in the Life in a Day episode that
Wasn't that
came.
Quentin's grandson or son?
No, in the flashback when he first meets the woman that becomes his wife, she has this like massive like 6'7" dude carrying peaches for her, and they start to bond when that character leaves. I can't remember what the character's name was. I think it was like
I
it
don't
was
know if he
something.
was ever named.
I think it was something stupid like a lunk or something. But yeah, that was the only other time where I was like, yeah, I could see actually doing him. Yeah, but as far as all the women of Magicians are like, even Irene McAllister, I could see banging, and she's nuts.
Yeah, she is. I love how when characters in the show are evil, they are unapologetically evil.
Yeah, but they're also not like you can see how they got there.
Yeah, like with Martin, he suffered a lot.
So very, very much. Just
Like
so much.
his evil was basically a defense mechanism.
And to be fair, if Julia and Quentin hadn't shown up to him and been like, Plumber is gonna do the thing, and then he decides, well, I'm gonna do the thing first. Um, if that hadn't happened, he probably wouldn't have become he probably still would have been broken and damaged and shit, but he probably wouldn't have become the Beast. That was mostly Quentin and Julia's fault.
I don't know what's a worse fate.
I don't know. I think if they hadn't intervened in his story and told him that, um, either it would have been like they thought it was, and Plumber would have become the Beast, um, or he would have become more like um, more like his brother and sister, and he would have become a hero eventually. He would have turned that darkness into something constructive eventually. Because
He would have been Batman.
No, I don't think he would have been Batman. I think I can't say because it's a spoiler for season 5. But long story short, you know how they keep mentioning Rupert Chatwin, the eldest brother?
Yeah, but we
He
never see
shows
him.
up in season 5. Um, he shows up in season 5, and we figure out what happened to him. But I'm not gonna say any more than that because that's spoilers. But I think that if Julian Quinton hadn't fucked up, which is extra ironic when you consider that Jane keeps resetting time so that they can defeat him, and she doesn't think to just stop them from doing that. But yeah, I think that if his story was allowed to play out right, he would have eventually turned that pain into something constructive. Because, especially given how we know the magician style magic works, and the magic comes from trauma and pain, there's nothing to say he couldn't have been a great magician if they just hadn't have meddled. But
Yeah.
they did, so the
Time
fuck.
travel screws everything up, man.
Yeah, time travel.
All right, we've been going for almost 2 hours, so I think this is a good place to call it.
Yeah, it probably is.
All right, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. It's what I do.
All right, and thank you everybody for watching this video now and afterwards. So, bye everybody. See ya.
Cheers.